Hi, welcome to a very special episode of the Suburban Stitcher Podcast. I am here today to bring you an exciting interview that I had the amazing opportunity to tape with the teachers at the Knitting in the Hills retreat, and that was held in Horseshoe Bay, Texas at the very beginning of March. I am going to let these lovely people introduce themselves to you, and I hope that you will take a couple of minutes, make yourself your favorite beverage, grab your knitting, and sit back and enjoy the lovely interview and talking with these teachers.
Hi, I'm Susan B. Anderson. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm a knitwear designer and blog writer and author, and I recently opened a new company called Barrett Wilco.
I'm Carson Demers. I live in San Francisco. By profession, I'm a physical therapist, but I've been knitting and playing with string since I was a kid. And I'm a writer. I have a new book coming out called Knitting Comfortably, edited by my friend Ann Budd. And I write for Fly Magazine. And I'm a physical therapist and an ergonomist, so I bring that to the fiber community to help us knit comfortably.
It's you. I'm Ann Budd, and
So I need to just say Ann.
It's your time. Okay.
The Ann Budd.
Okay, this is the Ann Budd, by the way. She's pretty awesome. I'm Bristol Ivy. I'm a knitting designer and teacher from Portland, Maine. I like knitting a lot. Working on a book, which has been cool, slightly terrifying, and I'm really excited to be here.
I am Christina Bain. You probably recognize my face from the homepage of Ravelry. My name there is Oh Are They? And I'm one of the developers. It's Casey and I who make Ravelry code for you. And I'm going to be here and answer people's questions about Ravelry all weekend. And I live in Austin, Texas. Hill Country Weavers is my local yarn store.
Oh, that's really cool.
That's great.
Awesome. I'm jealous of just that.
It is
That
awesome.
is amazing. So from hearing you talk and from knowing you, we have several writers or soon-to-be writers, authors in the group. Why don't you, and I'll start with Susan, you have written several books, and what was it like to write your first book? And I say your first because we have several who are either on the verge of getting that book out into the world or working on it.
Yeah, so like Bristol said, it's a little, to write your first book, I think is somewhat overwhelming. And I wrote my first book. I've written 6 books with a traditional publisher, and it was such a different time. I think my first book came out in 2006, so it was a different time. It was pre-Ravelry, and a lot of things have changed since then, but it was, the learning curve was very steep, and I didn't know anything about it. I think I had only written maybe a dozen patterns or so ever. So it was just a huge, overwhelming task, and it was thrilling and exciting, and then scary when the book was released because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And kind of after that first book, I think you kind of get the process down, and then it becomes a lot more, I don't want to say routine because it's always really exciting to write a book, and it should be something that you're really passionate about when you're writing it. So it's an exciting process. It's different than anything else. I don't know if are you doing a publisher?
Yes.
You are. What
Yeah.
publisher are you working
Pom
with?
Pom.
Oh, Pom Pom.
Yes.
Super fun. Okay, so that's, yeah, and then is yours?
I'm indie.
Oh, you're doing, okay, good for you. Okay, yeah, so there are
So
so many
totally
different avenues.
different
That you
avenues.
can take, and there are advantages and disadvantages to every way that you choose to write a book, so it's great. I think nowadays there are so many options for people who are writing books.
Yeah.
I would just like to interject. For my first book, I honestly thought I was going to self-combust.
Yeah.
I was wound up so tightly that I remember walking down the hall and thinking, if I bump the wall, I'm going to disappear. It's just,
And what was your first book?
my first book was The Knitter's Handy Book of Patterns.
That was your first
That was your
book?
first book? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh
Setting
my
the
God,
bar
that is
high
so-
there.
Yeah, really, way to
That is
set the
such a...
bar.
Jeez.
Okay, I can understand why you... That's not just a little book of patterns.
No,
That's like a
it's like a major work.
tomb of
Well,
knowledge.
yeah. But I had already...
Tomb of knowledge.
Sorry.
That is awesome.
Sorry,
Sorry,
Anne's
okay.
case.
It
Sorry.
felt like Anne's tomb.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I never
It went
thought I
along
would
with
do
it.
a
That's awesome.
second.
What did you say?
I never thought I'd do a second.
And
Right.
now how many have you done?
16.
Yeah, she's done a few.
But not all by myself.
So Carson, your book is coming very soon.
My book is at print right now.
Ooh.
Woohoo! Available for sale right now.
That's right.
Awesome.
I know.
Get one for yourself
Yeah, I
and
had-
all your knitting friends.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't feel like I was going to self-combust at all, did I, Anne?
No, I
No.
only had to talk you off the ledge a couple times.
I would call or email Anne, just like, Anne, I have to stop. I can't. It's too much. It was.
I'd say, yeah, Carson, you're right on schedule. That's exactly how you should be feeling at this point.
Where do you buy it? Where can you buy it?
Well, right now you can just buy it from my website, but
Okay.
it'll be in shops.
Okay.
Yeah, the shops that I've got a lot of wholesale orders
Okay.
coming, so
Okay, great.
It'll be everywhere.
All right.
Hopefully it'll be
And your website is just your name?
Ergonomics.com.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Little plug, Ergonomics.com.
Knitting comfortably. You should have one of
Knitting
It'll be
comfortably,
right.
I
We'll
know.
put it right here on the screen.
There you go. There you go. Well, I'm one of Kat Bordy's visionaries, so I met Kat in 2008, I think, and I took a class with her at Stitches West, and she had her knitters get up and take a stretch, which I thought, and I complimented her on it because I always make my knitters do stuff like that and more. And I told her about this idea for a book, and she invited me to her knitters, her writers retreat, which I went to the following year, and was blown away by the books that Sandra McGiver was there, and she was doing Knit Swirl, and Sandra's so organized, and she had this beautiful PowerPoint of this is how I organize my day, and this is how, just everything was in an Excel spreadsheet, and then J.C. Breyer, who has a mind like a computer, is showing her books, and I'm like, this pile of paper is my ideas for a book.
But it comes in all forms.
It does, and
That's exactly right.
it was really scary. I remember when I passed
But
it over
those
to Anne.
visionaries are kind of scary.
They're
Because
so
they're
helpful.
all so brilliant.
They are brilliant, and they're so generous.
Yeah.
Says the Ann Bud.
Yeah, right.
That's amazing.
Well, and then you have a good editor, right?
I know,
So
but-
that's the key.
Well, I was
That
telling
is
Anne last night
amazing.
when Anne, when I even approached her to talk about this, I was weak in the knees because I'm sort of an Anne Bud groupie.
Yeah.
We're
And,
all in Bud Group.
Everybody
You have to be an Anne
Yes,
Bud
just
groupie.
stop it. I'm getting hot.
It's that wool skirt, man. But anyways, I remember handing my manuscript over to her and just thinking she is laughing her head off. She's got to think, what a pile of...
No.
But my point being, it's just scary to have
It is
somebody
scary.
read your stuff for the first time.
The first.
Absolutely.
I think that,
And then after a while, you get to go, please read this.
please read this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Let's make sure this is a
yeah,
coherent sentence.
making no sense.
I'm at this point, I'm really very proud of my book. It's beautiful.
It is.
It is a beautiful book. It is a hard copy book. And it's beautiful,
And
colorful.
Everybody.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, can't
That's
wait
awesome.
to show it to
Can't wait to sell it.
you.
So Bristol, you are in the throes of writing.
I am in
You are in
deadline
the.
land.
Okay, so when do we have an estimated?
Please help me, yes.
Birth date?
It's going to come out, if everything goes to plan, it's going to come out at Rhinebeck this year.
Oh,
Yay.
What a
Yeah.
fun time!
Yeah, we're going to launch at Rhinebeck.
Fun.
I know, it's going to be super intense and amazing and, terrifying. So there's still a lot of work yet to do.
Does it have a title you can reveal?
We were talking about this last night. I'm really bad at titles. Right now,
I'm
it's
Or
really
a
good at
theme?
titles.
A theme?
It's based on a class that I teach called Knitting Outside the Box.
Ah.
And one of the things that I really love about knitting is that the big thing that I always say in class is that knitting has traditions, it doesn't have rules.
Mhm.
And it takes people a while to figure that out. And so this book is all about approaching knitting from different directions, approaching your inspiration from different directions. And if you bring like these elements together, here's some exercises to do. And then here are the different techniques you can use to make your idea a reality. So that's kind of where I'm going with
Sounds
it.
fabulous.
I'm really
Very
excited about it. I'm really, really excited about it.
Is it
And-
the first book that Pom Pom's done?
They've done one other one. They did Take Heart with Fiona Alice, which was like a smaller collection, but this is like their first hardcover. And I'm super, super excited. Like we've been scouting locations. I'm going to shoot it in London. I'm ridiculously excited. So
Yeah.
we could have shot that.
I should have shot
That's
it.
fantastic.
So yeah, but it's also like, holy God, I have so much to do.
How many projects is it?
There's 15 projects, but then there's also around 300 swatches in there too. And
Are the swatches done?
no.
Yeah, okay.
Are the
Get
projects
knitting.
done? No.
Get knitting.
Yeah, so like the next couple months, everything is due beginning of May.
Oh,
So the next couple of months are
Wait a
going to be
minute.
intense.
The beginning of May is
Yeah.
after the end of April.
Yeah. And I'm teaching for you at the end of April.
I know.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like.
I'm going to
you're
be
gonna ready
alive.
to self-combust.
I'm going to be alive, but yeah, don't
I
let me.
won't poke you.
Yeah, don't poke me. Don't let me bang on any walls in the hallways. But yeah, so it's going to be intense, but it's going to be really fun. I do really well under pressure, so
that's exciting.
I think I do really well under pressure.
So far.
So far, we'll see how everyone else in my life.
There's a pile of ashes
Yes.
where Bristol used to
Yeah,
be at
pile
the end of
ashes and,
April,
like,
then
a
we'll
pile
know.
of pizza boxes. It's gonna, yeah, it'll be fine. I'm going to spend my entire advance on pizza boxes.
So, Christina, you write as well, but in a totally different way because you're writing all of the behind the scenes so that these designers can get their stuff out into the world for us, the consumer. Talk a little bit about that and what you do. So you're writing code. Tell me about what your life at Ravelry looks like.
Life at Ravelry is so great. Like Casey and Jess just like are unsurprisingly just like the best bosses in the world. So we all hang out all day in a Slack chat room and are all like talking to each other all the time. Like we feel really connected, which is great because we all are distributed across the country. Most days, like the only adults I speak to are my daughter's like daycare providers. But writing code, mostly like I do my thing. Sometimes I send it to Casey and I'm like, here's a start, like I need you to like put your brain on this. And he always has something amazing and generous to add. And also usually if I'm writing like text that people that don't work for Ravelry will see, like I have Mary Heather look at it. Because when you're writing code, there's like I write in a really computery way, text.
Sure.
When I'm like writing code and I'm like, this is invalid. And Mary Heather's like, that's not the error message that we should put out there for Ravelers to read. I'm like, you're right. Okay, what you need to help me give words that like not programmers understand for Ravelers. So we really like, even though our work is very siloed, a lot of eyes go over the code before it ever actually goes live on Ravelry. And I finally like don't want to jump off a bridge when I break Ravelry. Like it still like makes you feel terrible because like now there are 7 million people that are inconvenienced
Wow.
by you like forgetting a semicolon.
And you'll hear about it for sure.
Oh, and
right?
you hear about it immediately. We have the like integrations in our Slack chat room, so immediately the tweets start coming into the chat room, and you can see them. And then there's another one where all the errors start coming in.
Oh, God.
So yeah, I mean, like the world is screaming at you, and like you still want to die, but like less like okay, like I should just do everyone a favor and like not work here anymore. Like that feeling has come down a little bit.
That's good.
And seeing right that like Casey does it too, and Casey's just like 10 times smarter than me, which is like nothing, not being self-deprecating. He is just like the smartest, best computer programmer that I have ever been in a room with.
Yeah, He's
And
amazing.
he makes mistakes sometimes and brings down the site. And that helps, like, okay, like some days you just are going to forget that semicolon and you will break Ravelry.
I had no
And-
idea the stakes were that high.
That's a lot of pressure.
I would be chainsawing your job.
It is really, really hard sometimes to write things. Right now what I'm working on is a new needles and hooks inventory.
Ooh.
And it is
Oh,
really
cool.
hard because people have been writing ideas for what it should look like for 10 years. 7 million people have 10 years worth of ideas of what this should look like. And so every decision I make, I hear in my head what the haters will say about it. And you can't make 7 million people happy. Like there will be haters,
No.
even if I've made the right choice for the site.
Mhm.
But it is really hard not to get paralyzed by knowing that I will hear what people don't like about it and still moving forward.
Can I ask how much of the improvements or the changes that you make is community sourced, and how much is like an overall structure that you and Casey set?
We have like the list where people can put
Right.
forth bugs and enhancements, and we mostly use that to like get details about things that are outside our scope of understanding. Like, I am not a weaver, so when I'm gonna like do anything related to weaving, like I love when people come and leave notes about like this is exactly what we weavers need, or this is exactly how you reproduce this bug, or this is exactly how this could be more helpful to me. And we will make, like, this is what we're going to do for the next 6 months, and we never actually do those things for the next 6 months. We do it for the next month, and then something else feels important. We're hearing a lot about it. It is a lot, and we are hearing a lot of voices talking about the same thing. We pay attention to it and try to be responsive to it, and balancing that with, like, there are things that don't feel important to everyone.
Right.
There's something to do. Or also, 100 voices can feel loud, but is a tiny percentage of 7 million people.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it is hard to balance that. And, like, there's so many comments of, like, we've wanted this for 5 years, and you haven't done it. Clearly you don't think it's important.
Ooh.
And, like, we do! Like, we do! But there are 2 of us
Yeah.
that write code for Ravelry, and, like, we can't get it all done as much as we'd love to.
Yeah.
It is more important to us to stay a small, self-sustaining business, not hire, 30 more developers and do everything on the list, but then also not be a business for very long.
How many people total are on the staff? Is it like 5?
It is 5.
Okay, that's what I thought. So it's incredibly small.
crazy. Yeah.
Such a huge following.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for everything that you
so
do.
much.
Thank you for our
It's amazing.
livelihoods.
We're lucky
It, like, that feels so good. Like, on those days
Yeah.
where I'm like, oh my god, like, how will I do this? I'm going to hear so many people hate this. I'm like, but you know what? Like, we have literally changed people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People can make a living doing this. Like, that feels so good to be a part of enabling small businesses and, like, a lot of small women-owned businesses. It just feels so good that we are a platform that helps people do that.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Yay, Ravelry.
That's awesome. That is so much more than I thought that question was going to garner, and that is amazing. So, one thing that I just think would be amazing to hear from all of you is, so the theme for one of our talks this week is why we make. And I would love to hear from anyone who would like to answer, why do you make? Why do you design or knit, whatever it is that you're making, whatever that means to you?
I just need to keep my hands busy.
Yeah.
That's part of it. Yeah. That's a big part of
I
it.
can't sit still.
My mom taught me to knit because she wanted me to sit still. Because I fidget constantly. So knitting, like, if I were sitting here without knitting, I would be biting my nails, or I would be, like, playing with everything I own right now. But for me, knitting is also knitting is geometry you can hold in your hands. It's this amazing plastic representation of art and math and all of the intersects between the two, and it is. It is. It totally is. I mean,
It
so
totally
many,
is. I've just never thought about it
yeah,
that way.
so many
That's
different
amazing.
people have used knitting and crochet to represent mathematical concepts that can't be represented in any other way, because you can replicate things in certain ways with that, and it's just this perfect marriage of logic and art, and you can push so many boundaries by, like, tweaking those two parts of it really interestingly. So I love that that little bit of exploration
I
there.
like self-combust. What a concept.
It is really cool though.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
Yeah, I used to do all of these different hobbies growing up. Like I did photography, and I did logic puzzles, and I did sewing, and I did graphic design, and printmaking, and all these things. My parents were like, "How the hell is all of this going to come together in one thing?" And it's been knitting, because it's all of those things. It's the if-then statements of the logic puzzles. It's the graphic design. It's the photography. It's all of these different things all in one form. So it's really cool because of that.
Like, this is so interesting to hear, knowing your design aesthetic, knowing that you are just, like, literally knitting math.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of it is like an if-then statement. Like, can I create a parabola? What's that going to look like? Can I then wear a parabola? So yeah, it's real it's
Like a water fountain makes a parabola.
Oh, Ravel.
yes.
Oh.
Yes.
It's a hat from Peru.
Well, that too. Yeah.
I agree, and I kind of have two hats, no pun, in terms of making. When I decided to go sort of semi-professional in knitting, it really was that I was intending to be a designer. And for all of the reasons that you just shared, like, because you do a lot of physics and physical therapy, you're a physical therapist, and it's just the most elegant science in the world, and you can express it with string. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
But there's this other whole component about how knitting not just connects people in a point in time, but it connects us across generations.
Yes.
And I make things that I can give to my nieces and nephews, and they can wear them, and they can give them to their kids someday. And it's just the most amazing thing. And to know that we're doing techniques that hands have been doing for thousands of years, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
So, and I think that even the fabric that we make is really representative of that. I get really poetic about this in the introduction of my book, where Anne is read it.
Not poor,
Yeah, lucky Anne. But the other piece of it is, and this is where Ravelry is, why it's so important, is you guys gave a platform to just bring this to a whole other level. I mean, just this whole other level of connectedness. And so the other piece of what I make, thank you again, Ravelry, because we are on computers a lot, and it's become a knitter's tool. You kind of need to have one these days, right? We communicate, we market,
Yeah.
we do so much, and so the ergonomics component, the fact of ergonomics is a reality for knitters, and I started seeing a lot of injured knitters in my clinical practice, which is why I started teaching, and ultimately why I wrote this book. But we spend so much time doing these same movements on keyboards and laptops, and yarn and string.
Yep.
Well, I make because, what was the original question again? It was
Just
why you make.
Why you make.
Well,
We kind of tangented there.
I love a tangent. But I grew up in this kind of creative home. My mother was just a beautiful seamstress, and we just made everything. She made a lot of my clothing, and especially every special occasion kind of clothing. But there was never anything that we couldn't fix or make or create if you needed something. It was just a whole lifestyle. My dad was a wonderful singer and musician, and we just had music in our house all the time, and it was really just a whole lifestyle. And I, like Bristol, just did every kind of craft. I remember being a kid, and people would say, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I'd say crafts. That's like all I wanted, crafts. And so for me, it's just been a way of life, and I've done all sorts of things to even remodeling a kitchen and doing a mosaic backsplash, and I mean, like big kind of industrial type things, furniture and all sorts of things like that, to, I love detail work and stitching and all that stuff. But interestingly enough, no one in my family knitted at all. They did all sorts of other things, but no knitting. So when I was a teenager, I taught myself to knit, and something just stuck with me, and I've never stopped ever since. And I just taught myself, and I wasn't ever around any knitters, and there wasn't Ravelry and all this fantastic. I can't imagine learning to knit now with everything on the internet. It would be just a whole different world. But there was such a struggle to find any information, at that point.
Sure.
So, you figured out a lot of things on your own back in the old days. But so the other thing about making, as you kind of have go through stages of life and the ups and downs of life, is that it's just carried me through so many really hard times, and it's brought such a peace and like a focus that you can focus on to distract your mind. Maybe someone in your family's ill, or someone's passed away, or something like that. It's really brought me through so much, and happy times as well. It's joyful times as well, knitting during those times too. So I have a lot of emotion always attached, and it's just like a whole lifestyle for me. And when I teach, I love how you said that. It's something tangible in your hands, and it's like the math and everything. When I'm teaching my toy classes, I love, I have had a student say to me, "You take toy knitting very seriously." I do take it seriously, because to me, when I'm creating things, these little fun things, and they may look so cute and funny, but it's math.
Yeah.
It's shaping. Yeah. I'm creating a sculpture. I said, you're creating this 3-dimensional sculpture, and you have to see it through. So it's
you have to finish.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a
That's
you
amazing.
have to stuff it correctly and do all the detail work correctly. Not correctly, but just finish it out. So anyway, I got a kick out of that. I'm Bristol, feeling that same amazement, at what you're creating.
It's so cool.
It's really fun.
Okay, so we all are knitters in this room. We wouldn't be here, probably, most likely, hanging out at a knitting retreat if we weren't a knitter. How else do you unwind? Do you have other hobbies, other things that you do when you have your downtime? Whether it's a creative outlet or anything that you would do that you feel like sharing.
I spin quite a bit, and I have a dog, and she's like playtime.
Fun.
That's kind of how I do.
What's her name?
Her name is Lily. She's the best dog in the world. Perhaps you've heard of her.
I have.
She's a beautiful standard poodle. She's a white standard poodle. She's
Beautiful.
adorable. She's really sweet. What do you
Am I
do?
to say something?
Sure. Everybody's
Okay.
looking at you.
Okay. Now, I think a lot of people who we are kind of self-employed, and the work is never finished. And so, what do you do to unwind? I'll do a crossword puzzle. That's something different. But it's not like me. I worked at Interweave for 18 years. And even then, you go to the office, you do that job, but then you come home, and then that's when I would knit. And I wrote a lot of books while I was on staff. And just I don't know what I do. My husband and I will watch a movie, but then
You're
I'm
usually knitting.
You're
Yeah.
probably knitting.
Yeah.
It's just always
It's a
there.
blurry line.
Yeah. And I love it. When I think I was 12 or 13, and my father made a comment that he liked what he did so well. He was a teacher of geology, that he would do it if he weren't paid to do it. And I remember thinking, that's just crazy. You are so lucky, because I just had my idea that work was that work.
Yeah.
And then somehow I ended up the same way.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, I think people go into knitting design or like working in the industry thinking that they're going to spend a lot of time actually knitting. And you don't. You really don't.
You're on the computer.
Yeah, you're on the computer for the most part, or you're teaching, or you're traveling, or something like that. So the amount of time that you actually do get to knit is like this total little bubble of joy. Even if it's work knitting, it's just like, yay, I get to actually do something with my hands. It's really good.
That's awesome. I'm going to use that bubble of joy.
Little bubble of joy
This
is
is
like
my
my
little
little
bubble
I
of joy.
hoard that time.
Yeah, and that's funny because knitting is the fun time, and you're
It
right, you
is,
don't
yeah.
get to do it very often.
That's true.
And I've gotten somehow in my head that I can't knit during the day. During the day, I have to do the work.
Yeah, it feels
And
like
so
cheating.
it's
You only knit at night.
So mostly,
After dinner.
although what I did is I've started now. I have a treadmill, and to make me get on the treadmill, I knit on the treadmill. And
That's
so
awesome.
every morning.
Not die. I can't get on the treadmill without falling off. Like even without knitting involved.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I did nearly fall off one time. I was doing a difficult stitch manipulation. Well, it just kept going further and further back, and then I realized I was going off the end. But it was okay because when the treadmill was delivered, they said, you want to keep it far enough from the walls that you won't get caught.
Oh my gosh, Anne. That makes me nervous.
I feel like George Jetson's dog, right?
Yeah.
Sort of going around and around.
But it's great because now
You look forward to getting on the treadmill.
to getting on
Yeah.
the treadmill. I have an apron that I've kind of clipped up so I can hold things.
You are brilliant.
And I'm just walking along, and I get my
That is
my
amazing.
exercise, and I get an hour of knitting every morning now.
Oh,
So it's
Awesome.
wonderful.
I love it.
Christina, is knitting is that your downtime? That's your...
Yeah, I mean, probably like most of us, like I knit and I spin and I sew, and it is hard to find the balance between all of those things. And I also am trying really hard to get back into exercising, so running.
Get a treadmill.
and an apron.
Yes.
And two
I like
binder
to
clips.
read when I'm on the treadmill.
Oh.
Like it feels less dangerous. I don't run on the treadmill.
Okay.
Well, now I can. I haven't been able to run for a really long time. So when you're walking,
Okay. Okay.
and I enlarge the font,
Okay.
and I do it on an e-reader. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I
I can't.
if I do anything that isn't like focused straight ahead when I'm on the treadmill, I'm on the floor. So it's
Well,
totally
you can
scary.
knit without looking.
I can knit without looking, but no, it's.
But you
Right.
can't walk without looking.
I can't walk without looking. Oh, it's bad. I have actually
I,
gone on
um,
the treadmill, so.
I go outside, and I've fallen outside too. So
Yeah,
many
it's
times I have fallen outside. But I like to walk and hike and run, and I just love being outside so much. So even I live, in a cold climate, and I'm out in the snow, ice. I'm out every day. I try to get outside for a while. So that's really my downtime. But I'm usually thinking about knitting while I'm out. And I've come up with some of my best ideas while I've been on those
Yeah.
runs and walks and hikes. And it's just a good way to, get up and move. And I knit a lot. So knitting's just what I do for fun too. So I have a very blurry line there though. But I do think it's really good to get up, and you would absolutely know more about this than me, but I stand and knit, and probably I'd say 50% of the time I stand and walk around while I knit,
That's pretty
because I just can't sit that long because I'm pretty fidgety too, and I just can't do that.
Yeah.
So
You're doing yourself a favor.
A huge favor.
yeah. So I just kind of, a lot of times I stick something under my arm, or if I have a pocket, a lot of my clothes, I like to have a big pocket on it, and I just put my yarn in there and I just walk around, even if it's just in your house. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I'm sure you recommend
I
that,
make
right?
my knitters do it in one of my classes.
Do you?
Yeah.
Just to try it, because a lot of people don't
A lot
try
of people
it
don't.
even.
A lot of people are afraid that they don't even think they can stand to knit. And we have
Okay.
such a rich knitting history of walking
Right.
and knitting. And,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's really knitters have this idea that making a little nest in their house where their chair is and their knitting bag and their table.
And never leaving.
Never leaving. Like, that's an efficient way to do it, but it's really not. I mean, as I tell them, you probably end up ripping those last few rows out the next day because you're tired because you haven't moved and your brain needs the oxygen.
Now, how often in a stretch of time do you recommend getting up and moving around?
I'll answer that two ways. The research says you should get up every 20 or 30 minutes, but
Okay.
knitters aren't going to do that typically they're not.
And then how long would you be up if it's 20 minutes?
It's just really to decompress the discs in your back and get some better circulation to your legs. So a minute or so, but
Okay.
I advocate putting, I talk a lot about this in the book, of course, but putting markers in, looking at your chart and putting marks in there that will remind you when you need to get up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's really
Oh.
smart.
Or hanging markers on your work that will tell you when to move and what to move, just to kind of help people.
After this lace repeat, I get up.
Yeah.
Or after this.
Yeah, and after I've knitted the wrong side row of a cable, I need to put my work down and stretch my hands because that's a really tight row and my hands can get really sore from doing that.
Absolutely.
How do you get people? Because I know there's all sorts of nice endorphins that happen when you keep knitting. How do you get people to forego the endorphins of keeping going, of just one more row,
Yeah,
in order to?
I try to be as compelling as possible with all the good things it does to set it down. And if that doesn't work, I always encourage them to be drinking lots of water while they're knitting.
Oh, so they have to go.
So they have to.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
That's a good trick.
Yes.
That's
Just
true.
like have a camelback on.
Well, I joke in my class that the knitter's nest includes a porta potty and a mini fridge, so
Yes.
you really don't have to go very far.
Yes.
That's
This
awesome.
is true.
I would love to hear each of you if you have a favorite tool in your arsenal, a favorite knitting, whether it's a notion or a favorite tool. I will just leave it at that. I don't want to give ideas.
I can start on that. My favorite thing that I'm always reaching for, I love knitting needles, and I love different kinds of needles for different projects. But I'd say the main needles I use, and I have them right here on my sock, are the signature needles. I love them, and it's taken me years to kind of collect because they're a little bit pricey, so I just have collected them very slowly throughout the years, and I love them. And I like to also try all sorts of other needles, and I think that's fun because certain needles are good for certain yarns
Absolutely.
and projects and things. So I have a pretty
That's what I always tell
extensive collection.
my students that you can't have too many needles.
I
You
can't.
can't.
You
because
That's true.
It's all about the pairing of the needle and the yarn and
right.
what's going to work best.
Absolutely.
And needles are really standard sizes.
I know. That's
So
true.
a size 5 from one company
Mhm.
is different than a size 5 from another, so you might have a better time getting the
Yeah.
gauge you're after
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
by switching
That's a really
needles.
good point.
And
When
even
you're
depending
close
on
to
the maker.
gauge,
Yeah,
you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what the needle is made of.
right.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you're knitting with silk on a metal needle versus silk
Those
on a
would
wooden
be-
needle,
Yeah.
that's a completely different gauge and experience.
Yes.
So
It's interesting, I'm a needle junkie too, and I have gazillions of them for all the reasons that you guys are talking about. But I'm always amazed when I say that to my students that like half of them think I'm crazy. Like, why would I need more than one size 7 needle?
Right.
They don't really
Really?
think. Yeah, they don't think about again the ergonomics of that tool. And if they're going to knit with a variety of fibers, it's just not going to work.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I pretty much exclusively stick to metal needles. Like I don't use wood, I don't use bamboo because they just don't work with the way that I knit.
And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I
But
think we should have a talk.
We'll have a talk. We'll
Yeah.
talk about this.
But
yeah.
I think they also want to have a variety of types of your
Oh
needles.
yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You mean anatomies, like single point, double point? Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
I just different companies.
Oh,
that
different
have
companies.
Different,
Yeah, yeah.
different point.
Yeah.
Different points of
Points
metal.
of-
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we're really, we're so lucky these days because there are so many needle makers.
Yeah.
We
No
have
doubt.
such a variety of not just materials, but shaped. The shape of the shafts are really available now, and tip length and tip pointedness, and all of that's really, really
Mhm.
great. You know, our grandmothers didn't have that, so we're
No.
really lucky.
No way.
No, they had the one needle.
They have the
Yeah.
one needle. Yeah.
They made it work.
Can I break the fourth wall and ask about your really adorable little straights?
Yes. So these are signature 7-inch
They're super
straight
cute.
needles.
Those are so
Um,
cute. Yeah.
And I use them for my blanket squares. I just bought them for my little scrap blankets because I was really sick of running
Yeah.
the cord
Yeah.
through 1,000 times.
How long are those?
7 inches.
Did you say that? Okay,
Mhm.
7 inches.
Yep, and they're they're super lightweight. Like
So
yeah,
the signatures
and
are
they're
so nice.
I have the stiletto tips on these. Probably if I purchase them again, they have like a midi
Yeah.
tip. I'm a pusher,
Those that hurt
which
your
ends
hair.
up, you know,
Yeah.
like that. So
Yes.
I'll be in your class
Yes.
later. We can have an intervention. But so I do learning about how I knit and what is out there. I have found that the ones that are a little less pointy are better for me, just so that I'm not impaling myself all the time. But yeah, I love these. So if you do lots of little back and forth,
Are those threes? What size are those?
these are no, they're small. They're 2.5s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
The
they're
purple.
magenta.
Yep. So they're like 1.5. I guess.
That's the other thing to love about the signature needles is
They're so
each
pretty.
size is a
Yes.
different
Color-coded.
color.
So helpful.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
helpful.
So
That makes
Andy-
me want to knit one of those blankets. Just
Yeah.
seeing that.
Thank you.
That's really
They're
cute.
fun. Leftovers. And do you have a tool that you always go to?
Well, I think this talk on needles, I really love interchangeable circular needles. And what I love about them is, one, you can't lose one, because I've been on a long plane flight with a broken needle that I sat on. Anyway, that's a whole nother story we won't go into. What I really love about them is I put the needle for gauge tip on the right side,
Mm-hmm.
and the giving needle, the needle where you just move the stitches up, I do that 1 or 2 sizes smaller, and it makes it so much easier to just move the stitches around,
Yeah.
and then it's easier to get in the stitch because you've got a smaller needle holding it.
Do you do that too, Bristol?
If I'm working in the round, yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, if I'm working flat now, but if I'm working in the round,
Oh.
sometimes I just forget and leave.
The reason I started
Yeah.
is I knit and purl at 2 different gauges, and I have to use a smaller needle to purl with.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
so
Oh,
I
so then
would
it's
use
already there.
interchangeable for back and forth, and then once I
That's genius.
did it for working in the rounds, and I thought that is such
Oh,
a
I'm
Yeah,
gonna try
it works
this.
so well.
it works so well. So that's my big
That's a
tip for
great
that.
great
tool
tip.
tip.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Bristol, do you have a favorite thing you have to have when you're
I
knitting?
am a scissors junkie.
Ooh,
Like,
Fun.
it's kind of a weird
sharp,
thing.
pointy
Yeah,
edges.
yes. I will hesitate to spend a whole lot of money on stuff because it's like, no, I don't need more yarn, I don't need more fabric. Well, don't need more fabric. Anything like that. But like, if a good pair of scissors presents itself to me, I really just love good scissors. So I saw, we got a sneak peek of the marketplace last night, and they had little matte black scissors, and I was like, oh, this might be coming on me. I
Are
already
they
have
the
two
ones with the little teeny
little
tips?
teeny
And
tiny
those
tips and
big.
huge.
Oh yeah, those are
So
cute.
good.
Have those now.
Yeah.
The Count
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're wonderful because you can put your big stuff.
Here.
Well, my big hands fit in those.
Yeah, no, I have big hands too. So it's
Man hands.
there was a vendor at Vogue one year that had like $125 scissors that were like beautifully hand carved tortoiseshell
Oh,
handles, and I was really tempted. I was really seriously tempted.
Absolutely.
Yes. But my other one is just stitch markers, like really well made metal, small, unobtrusive stitch markers are probably my other favorite thing because I really love the art that goes into like the big extravagant stitch markers, but they tend to bug me.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're really nicely well made. One, there's an artist in BC, Canada, who does tapestry needles and shawl pins and jewelry, but she also makes really beautiful hand twisted stitch markers that I'm obsessed with. They're just so nice.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Who
and
is
I also
that?
like Kristen McIntyre,
I'm
Christ or Kristann.
Okay.
Yeah, she does really beautiful stuff. Really, really beautiful
here. I
stuff.
remember tapestry.
Yeah, got it.
Leslie Wind is in there.
Yeah,
But
she's-
I don't know if she does stitch markers.
But she does the
I have one of her
twisted
needles.
tapestry.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
those are
love
also
those.
gorgeous. Yeah,
Oh, I'll have to.
yeah. So I'm a notions junkie. Like that's my jam for sure.
Awesome. Christina, do you have a favorite?
I like stitch markers. I like mine similar to Bristol's, except I like them small and obtrusive, but my favorite ones are by Crystalettes, and they have like a little colored stone in the front, which I use to color code my knitting, like
Yeah.
paired repeats. I use the same
Oh.
color. I usually use green for go to be my like start of round marker, and just like a little
brilliant.
tiny, or sometimes just for fun. Like if I have like I did some project which had like 8 increases, and so I did them in rainbow color order, and I could like tell how far I was around
Oh,
the round.
That's really smart.
But I agree with you. I like them to be really small and unobtrusive. But like it's a little sparkly, and let's be real, like I like that.
Yeah,
But also just like little keys to myself while I knit.
that's awesome.
That's very smart. Fun and pretty and very useful.
Yeah.
Just like the perfect marriage of
Yeah.
everything. So, designers, do you still get a kick of seeing your things out there when someone makes?
Absolutely.
Does that ever get old?
Every time.
No, never.
No.
It is.
Is that
it is
amazing?
Such a surreal feeling.
Yeah.
Yep. When Bristol, when was do you remember like early seeing something out in the wild? Maybe even when you weren't expecting it, like you just saw someone with your design.
I don't remember out in the wild. I remember the first time that my very first pattern I did in a testing group on Ravelry. So I remember the first time someone posted pictures of one of my designs, and she lived in India, and she had tested my design, and I was like, this is from my brain, and it is in India, and this is weird.
That's amazing.
So that was super surreal, but it never gets old. Have you guys seen your stuff not in a knitting context? Like out in the world, not at a knitting
So
festival?
not the festival.
I'll never not.
I haven't done that yet,
There's
but
another
it's-
world out there.
I know,
Yeah.
it's a totally strange one. I was in Scotland last year and had the amazing great pleasure to hang out with Kate Davies, and we were on Loch Lomond and someone walked by in a sheephead hat, and we were just like, nice. And it was just
Wow.
such a surreal moment to be like,
That's
it's in
awesome.
the real world. It's not just us.
That's great.
Yeah.
Susan, you nodded. You've seen your things out and about a ton.
Well, yeah, I do, and I've seen. My first book was a baby hat book, so I've seen a lot of babies out in the wild wearing, and I'll be like, oh, I see that. So that's always fun. So it's fun.
Such an amazing, that someone got it and that they're spending their time,
Yeah.
that, their little bubble of joy after their work. And they're spending their time and their energy and their pennies to buy their yarn and making what you thought the world needed to have more of.
Well, and I had a thought. It's so, I don't know, humbling, rewarding that out of all the patterns and all the possibilities, that someone chooses, to make something that I designed, it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And I can imagine that never gets old.
No.
That's awesome. Well, I just want to thank y'all so much for your time today. We're at the very opening breaths of this retreat. So I just wish you all a lovely next 3 or 4 days. And I will just be thinking about all of your students, that they are excited and engaged and, come with minds ready to learn, and that you all have a wonderful time. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. And we will let you get on your way. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I hope that y'all had so much fun with that, as much fun watching it as I did being there in the room, and also just rewatching it again. So again, thank you so much to Cindy and Suzanne from Hill Country Weavers in Austin for letting me do this interview. It's my second year in a row to be a part of the interview process with this retreat, and I do hope that they invite me back. It's just one of my favorite experiences of the entire weekend, to get to be in a room with all these lovely people, these brains and talents in our knitting community, and get to learn just a little bit more about them. I do, as you saw, try to keep it as unfiltered and uncensored as possible, and I hope that makes for just really fun, interactive viewing for you guys. So I will put the links to all of these lovely teachers in the down bar and on my website, suburbanstitcher.com, so you'll be able to link to many of the things that they, at least their websites and some of the things that they talked about there. So have a great week, and I will see you next time.